A triple homicide on a South Dakota farm would lead to a down on the farm whodunit. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of the Mathis family murders. Viewer discretion is advised. Unfortunately, I don't really know much of anything about the Mathis family, like who they were as people. There is a book published about this case, however, that might have a lot more information about them. But this case took place in the area of Mount Vernon in South Dakota. It was September 8th, 1981. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, the police there in the area receive a call from John Mathis. His family, he says, they're dead. When police arrive a short time later, they confirm, in fact, that there are 3 members of this family deceased. 30-year-old LaDonna Mathis and her 2 children, 4-year-old Brian and 2-year-old Patrick. All 3 of them, it seemed, to have been shot dead while they were asleep. Now, at the time, the family was living in this, I guess they called it a machine shop, that's on their farm property. They're sleeping in there because it's like their makeshift home while they're rebuilding their actual home. Apparently, within a year or so time frame leading up to this case, the Mathis family home had burned down not once, but twice. Why that happened, how that happened, I'm not sure. Now, John Mathis says he was outside in the very early morning hours of September 8th, 1981, tending to a pig nearby. He says that at one point he hears a car around or on the property. Then he sees a masked man, he assumes a man, running away from the machine shop area. And then John and this man get into some kind of tussle. They get into a fight where at one point the unknown man takes a gun, a rifle, and shoots John through his left arm, and then he flees the area. When John comes to, he goes into the machine shop and he finds his 3 loved ones dead. LaDonna had been shot twice through her head. Brian had a single gunshot wound through his right ear, and then Patrick had been shot, the 2-year-old, had been shot through the back of his neck and then once more through his left eye. According to the police and the coroner, the 2-year-old boy was actually in a kneeling position on the bed when the bullet entered through his left eye. So he may have been alert when this shooting occurred. They also had a 9-month-old baby named Dwayne, but luckily the baby was not there that night. He was actually over at a relative's house being taken care of. So at the crime scene, police are trying to figure out, what kind of evidence do we have? And quite honestly, it sounds like they didn't really have much of any evidence. They had what they determined to be .22 caliber casings there found at the scene, and they would later confirm that the bullets and everything that killed the 3 were from a .22 caliber. Something to note is that in John Mathis's pockets, when they were investigating the crime scene, he's part of the crime scene, so they have checked his pockets, and they found .22 caliber rounds in his pockets. But he said, well, that's normal, because just, earlier today or the other day, my son came up to me with a bunch of, of these casings in his hand, and so I just put them in my pocket and I forgot they were there. He said it's very common to find .22 caliber shells and bullets and all that around this area, which was technically true. The murder weapon itself, however, was not found. They did a very large search of the property. They searched it top to bottom. They searched everywhere. They went through bodies of water. They searched the nearby wooded areas. They looked and looked and looked. They can never find the murder weapon. Were there any tire tracks? Because John did say there was, someone had, driven away or driven towards them, the house, in a car. I don't know for sure if they found tire tracks, but even if they did, they have not really used them in any of their court proceedings or anything like that. There was no foreign fingerprints or DNA. I mean, this is 1981, before they really knew what DNA even was, but they didn't have anything. And the one person who survived all of this, who was there, is John Mathis. Well, if you're going to search the property and you're going to dust for fingerprints, you're going to find his fingerprints, you're going to find his hair, finding his DNA, you're going to find his shoe impressions. He lives there. He's going to be all over that place. And so they had to go, well, if this wasn't some random intruder, who could it have been other than John Mathis himself? John Mathis has always stated that he had nothing to do with this triple murder. Now, the crime scene itself, was there anything stolen? It didn't appear to be anything stolen. It did not seem to be a robbery. This is like a middle of the nowhere property, and so it's like someone had to really know about it, this area. LaDonna wasn't raped or anything like that, and so there was no sexual motive. So what was the motive for a random person to do this? They really couldn't think of one, other than maybe this just being a random person who wanted to randomly kill people. But then why didn't he just directly kill John Mathis? If there was a point where he was running out of the machine shop towards John, they got into some kind of fight, why didn't the guy just take the gun and shoot John right then and there before even getting close enough to wrestle him? And then he shot him in the arm and then ran away. Why not finish it? Why not kill him? Because now he's a witness. He's potentially seen me. Why didn't he shoot John? That's a big question that they had to ask, and they never really found an answer. They interrogated John, obviously. They also questioned other members of the family, friends, co-workers, former colleagues, anyone and everyone in their life that could maybe shed some light on why the hell this happened. No one could come up with anything. Not really. In terms of like family and friends, they said they didn't really have any enemies. There was no conflicts at the time. The marriage appeared to be good from what it seemed like. Both were good parents to the kids. They seemed to be loving parents. And they were just having a really hard time thinking of why this family, why did this happen to them? Then police they heard a story from a neighbor / babysitter for the Mathis family, a 17-year-old girl. Her name was Kim Tatum. Kim told them a very concerning story. So she was a babysitter for the children there, and she told police that John Mathis had inappropriate sexual contact with her. She did not like it. She did not ask for it. Nothing like that. She had no involvement. He just made very inappropriate moves on her. And it appeared that to her that John was infatuated with her. And so what ended up happening was the girl's mom found out. The mom then goes to John and says, listen, I know what you've been doing with my daughter. I don't want to make this a bigger thing than it is. I want this to just go away. And so what's going to happen, John, is you're going to stop this. You're not going to have any more contact with my daughter. And if you do, I will tell your wife everything. And once police heard that story, it was boom, this is motive. This is motive for John to do this. With no physical evidence directly placing a gun in John's hand that pulled the trigger to kill 3 members of his family, his wife and 2 sons, with only a potential motive and with only very vague circumstantial evidence, they arrested John Mathis, and he would go to trial for the murder of his family. But what evidence would they present at trial? Honestly, none, as it were, not physical evidence. Again, they never found the gun. They could not put a gun in John Mathis's hand to say he pulled the trigger. It almost felt like police just needed it to be John, and it made sense that it was John because John was the only person they could prove was on the property that night other than the murdered victims. This is a very quiet, desolate area. It's not like a busy neighborhood. This isn't the type of place that randomly gets robbed or randomly people get murdered in that, on a property like this. So the police and the prosecution just simply could not prove anyone else was there. It doesn't mean that no one was there, though. It doesn't mean that John was the guy to do it. It makes sense. I understand John was the only living person left. There is that motive. Why would a 17-year-old girl even make this story up to begin with? There is that motive of, was she going to tell my wife? And so before that could happen, I need to just kill the family, I guess. Why not the people threatening to expose you? Why the family itself? It just seems, it's odd. And also, my thinking is, if there was this sort of like threat of we're going to tell your wife, if John were to kill his wife and 2 kids directly after this threat, wouldn't he know that they're going to come forward and say, whoa, we said this thing, right? And we told him we would tell the wife. So now he's murdered her. Here, police, let me tell you the story. Like, wouldn't he know they would go to police regardless? I don't know. It seemed like a stupid move. But again, men have killed their wives and children for stupid reasons before. They just weren't thinking. But with a lack of physical evidence, with only circumstantial evidence, which is barely any, they didn't really have any at all, and they have a motive that they can't necessarily say for sure actually is the motive, what could the jury do? The last piece of evidence is that on the outside of the machine shop, there was someone had written something with like a goldish kind of paint or spray paint or something, and it was just 2 words. It was Mathis sucks. Mathis, meaning their last name, was spelled incorrectly. The person who put it there spelled it Mathus. Their name is spelled Mathis. So was that some kind of retaliatory thing? Like, did they upset someone that, put that writing on the wall after they killed the family? Well, again, they really couldn't prove anyone had it out for John Mathis or LaDonna Mathis or anyone in that family. They also didn't find the paint can or spray paint can, whatever, wasn't there on the property. It was gone. Wherever the gun was, the paint was. And that was just sort of like a last-ditch effort for the defense to say, this kind of proves someone else did it. I mean, they even spelled the last name wrong. If John did it, he would spell his last name right. Well, would he, though, if he's trying to frame someone else? At any rate, the jury deliberates for quite some time on this case, and with extremely flimsy evidence, or really not much at all, the jury comes back with a verdict of not guilty. John Mathis was acquitted of the murder of his wife and 2 children. John Mathis can never be tried for their murders ever again. Double jeopardy. So, if John Mathis killed his wife and 2 kids, he got away with it. But did he really kill them? John was talked to by a reporter directly after the verdict was read, and the reporter said, quote, "How about the murders of your wife and your 2 sons? The attorney general said it's now an unsolved case." Mathis responds with, "I hope they can catch up to him." The reporter says, "Is there anything that you can do to help?" John responds, "I don't know. I tried all I can." And that's it. The attorney general said when asked, are you going to be reopening this case now? The attorney general just said, "I guess we have to because we didn't catch the guy." But it also sounds like they believe they caught the guy. They just couldn't prove that he was the guy. And really, the case has pretty much been cold ever since. There's no updates. There's not much ever talked about this case. It's been well over 40 years. The one person that they believe did it got off, and they can't do anything about it. And again, with the lack of evidence, and I have to imagine at this point that they either did not find any fingerprints or they did, and it just never matched anyone. Same thing with hair and DNA and all that, but it doesn't sound like there really was any forensic evidence that they would be able to put on somebody else other than John. But again, John lives there. He's going to be all over that place. And so with that lack of evidence, with that lack of motive, with that lack of anything, the unfortunate truth here is that this case will probably never have a conclusion. I can't sit here and say that I think John did it for sure, because I don't know that, because I'm one of those people where you've got to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt, and they just didn't have the evidence to prove it. If he shot the gun, where did he put the murder weapon in such a short amount of time where they wouldn't ever be able to find it? Like, he would have to go way far away and put it somewhere that no one would think to look. Same thing with the paint can, the spray paint can, or whatever was used. But again, do we know exactly when the murders happened to when he called 911? He called 911 around 4 o'clock in the morning, but he could have had hours to dispose of evidence if need be. We don't really know for sure. And so, the unfortunate truth is that LaDonna, Brian, and Patrick were gunned down, likely in their sleep, for reasons unknown. A potential killer was arrested and was acquitted. And with really nothing to go on, no anything, the murders of LaDonna, Brian, and Patrick Mathis will likely remain a mystery forever. But that is it for this case, True Crime, a Rooney, a Dooney, a Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you are new here, hello, my name is Mike. I tell true crime stories here on YouTube, obviously. So please subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. Drop a like, leave a comment so more people can see the video. Hit the bell so you're notified when I post new videos. I also post true crime stories over on TikTok in short form, so feel free to follow me over there. The link to that is in the link tree in the description of this video below. I do also post compilation videos here on YouTube every month of my previous month videos on TikTok, so you can always wait for that if you like. Also in that link tree below, you will find my case list. The list is over 7,300 names long. I pick my cases typically at random, but if there's a case you want me to cover, send me a quick email. My email is also listed below. Just the name of the case, where it happened, and when it happened. I'll add it to the list. And again, I can't tell you when I'll cover it because I pick them at random. However, if you are a loved one connected to a missing person, a cold or unsolved case, or maybe the case is solved, but you still want their story told. If you're a loved one, let me know in that email. That way I can make sure it gets a higher top priority. But that is it for this video, True Crime, a Rooney. So until the next case, ta-ta for now.